All right, well, good morning, everybody. It's been a while since I've uploaded a video, I think over a week. We were really busy last week building sheds and started a chicken coop and some other things. Hopefully we'll get those finished up this week if the weather cooperates. But I did get some work done last week. I think I finally crossed the hurdle of Stripe, and I'll be showing that later in some other videos, what I've got done. But I feel like, okay, I've got it working. It isn't perfect. There's still work to be done, but I just needed to walk away from it because it is honestly, it's complicated because there's just so many things that can happen, so many things that you need to deal with, but it is still, as one friend put it, the best, probably one of the easiest interfaces to use out there. So that just tells you how much complexity goes into, adding products to subscription plans, people subscribing, people canceling, people upgrading, people pausing, people doing chargebacks, all this kind of stuff. All that stuff is integrated into Stripe. I'm not dealing with most of it, but I think I've got a pretty good workflow, and I've got something I can go forward with, and that's all going to be part of K2. On the video, you'll see builtonapex.com/K2. That is a shortcut to the GitLab repo for K2. I'm currently on the dev branch. So there's a branch from about a month ago that is the main branch, but the dev branch has a lot of changes in it. I do recommend, if you want to use this, that you become really familiar with the code base because it's going to be changing. Like sometimes I just rename whole hundreds of lines because it's just not right yet. I'm thinking towards the end of the year, we're going to be fairly stable and all the big renames and things like that will be done. But I'm not quite sure if the end of the year is reasonable, or maybe I can do it sooner. We'll see. There's other shortcuts there, my YouTube channel, Twitter, LinkedIn, and just a personal page if you want to look at my resume or anything like that and see my work history and see what I do. I'm there. So what I want to talk about in this video is just some utilities that I've added to ArcSQL. ArcSQL is a utility library that I built, and it's part of K2. It's integrated into K2. I use it a lot. I couldn't do a lot of the things I do without it because it's just got a lot of my go-tos in there, a lot of helpful functions. And when something isn't built in Oracle and I need it, I tend to build it and put it here. And sometimes I build something that is actually already built in, I just didn't know it. So if I've built something that already exists, well, sometimes we do that. So let me just show you what we've got and why I built this. So we've got a list, 1, 2, 3, 4 from Dual. I can run that, and obviously going to return that. I've got something called shift list, and I've already had this, and this is very, like, sometimes you want to keep a list of, say, the last, in the case I'm going to show you the last, say, 24 items, and I want to keep those in a field, and it doesn't have to be numbers. And we can use shift list, which will take that 1, 2, 3, 4 and shift it 1 to the left, so it'll get rid of the 1, and we'll have 2, 3, 4, and then I'm going to append 5. And so you can see how we could keep a rolling list of items of a certain length. And there's another parameter. In order to keep this at 24, what do I do? I'd have to look at that right now. Let me go look at that. Let's go look at where we're using shift list in K2. Find an example of it. Yeah, so Eltrim. Okay, so yeah, here it is. So it takes a parameter, max items. That's how we do it. So it will limit it to 20. At 24 items, it will actually start shifting. Until then, it just kind of allows those items to accumulate. So we've got the shift list. Obviously, I'm not using all the parameters, but if I wanted to limit it to a certain number of parameters, I would just pass in that parameter, or a certain number of items, I would just pass in that parameter. So here we see an example. We'll run it, and I guess I already ran it, but now we get 2, 3, 4, 5. So it shifted this value out and added that value. So now I might want the last certain number of items. So in this case, I want the last 2 items, which may represent the last 2 hours, right? So I want the last 2 hours, and This is one of the new functions I've written, string last and items. And you can change the separator if you want. I don't have a string first and items. It makes sense. It probably wouldn't be too hard to write now that we have this. But I haven't written it because I don't need it. When I need it, it'll be easy enough to plug in. If you need it, it'll be easy enough for you to figure out how to do that. So then I've also written string average list, string sum list, and string max list. Now I'm afraid I've written these before. I don't know where they are, but I don't think they exist in my current repo. So we wrote them again just in case. But you can see here, I can just average a list here, a string list. I can get a sum, and I can get the max value. So what we're going to do is show you why we did all this and why they're being combined. So metric work is part of K2. This is a really awesome stats collection package that I'm building chart density on top of. And at this time, chart density has very little code. I'm really using everything that's available to you in the library. So you get to use this if you want to use it. That said, I'm still making a lot of changes because chart density is, exposing some of the flaws in the current design as I build it out, and I'm having to change things. But the metric work table is kind of like the main metrics table. It aggregates data into buckets. In this case, each row represents the current hour, and depending on where we are in the hour and how fast we're doing updates, it'll tell us how many kind of values are in this row or consist in the data that makes up this row. And we're ordering by something called percent score descending. So if I go over to the percent score, where is it? Right here, we can see whenever I ran that, the high score is 72. And so it's looking at history on this metric, and it's saying that this is kind of higher than normal. If it was totally normal, it would be closer to 50. If it was below normal, it would be closer to 0. And, if it's above normal, it's closer to 100. And it kind of tells you where things are landing. So out of the 5 values that have been updated this current hour, 4 of them have been about 480 to, roughly 960% of average. So above that number. And this would be 960 and above, this would be 1920 and above, and this would be about 10,000 and above. And so it's just telling me that it's high, and it is obviously landing high. And you can kind of look at your matrix here and see where things are landing. A lot of things are landing in this 240 bucket right now. But what we have here is our rolling percent score. So we have this score at the end of each hour. We have this score over the last 24 hours, and we can see that this is, this has been high for the last, 12, 13 hours or so. But maybe what I want to do is, because I'm not really seeing, if we just rolled into a new hour, this would only have like one value in it, and that's not really too relevant, So we always want to be looking at least at the last hour, maybe the last few hours. So if we want to kind of see what's going on there, what we can do is we can kind of do the same thing, select star from metric work, but we're going to do an order by, and we're going to get the last, let's say the last four items out of our rolling percent score, and then we're going to average that and do an order by descending there. And so in this case, our top metric is data block consistent reads and say consistent changes. Let's run this and see what it is. So if we run a little bit that, now data blocks consistent reads is number 3, consistent changes is number 4, but CR blocks created and rollbacks only are our top 2. And we'll go over and look at this. And you can see I'm doing I'm storing like 24 hours worth of values here on a lot of different items in this table. This makes a very flat table that I really like to look at because I don't have to write a bunch of queries of other tables to see what's going on. I don't have to maintain a lot of queries. It really is just looking at this table. And I feel like this is going to be very good for machine learning, for handing to some type of AI model and saying, hey, what's anomalous in this grid? And this is what the grid represents, et cetera, et cetera. And you can see numbers pop out like right there, that 3510 and 2820 really pop out. And of course, it's easy to drive. We can build alerts on this stuff and all kinds of things. So let's go look at our percent score, and that is going to be, where are we at? No, it's down here. Okay, so here's our rolling, and so we're looking at the last 4 hours, our rolling percent score, and so the higher ones are these two, and it's really easy to change that. We can also say, what was the max? Let's sort by max percent score in the last 24 hours. So I can look at the all last 24 hours and sort that way. And the max was prefetched blocks aged out before use. Let's just go look at the percent score. And so we had it looks like that 94 is probably the max. So that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hours ago. And I could go look at this, the detail here, and do all kinds of other things. But that's why I wrote the functions. It helps querying this table, and chart density is driven off of the data in this table. And so as we add tags and filters, we're going to be analyzing some of these things, and that's going to help us filter what we want to see. Because what we normally want to see is anomalous behavior. We might see data that's hot or data that's cold. That would be above average or below average. We usually don't need to see stuff that's totally just doing its normal thing. And when you limit it to that, you end up with a very small subset of this data. And so anyway, that's it. Those are available in the ArcSQL package. I think the ArcSQL package may be one of the few packages you can just install it all by itself. It doesn't really need anything else. The rest of the stuff in K2, you got to install all of K2. And it's just a bunch of tables and packages. If you put it in a schema, it does have some scheduled jobs. You can basically shut everything off and just run, have K2 available if you want to use some of these functions and you don't want to worry about trying to install one part of it and not the other part. So anyway, all the links are there on the screen. Thanks for watching. Hopefully be getting some more video out about chart density today and the Stripe integration. We'll see how far I get with my work there. Thanks.